Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to When We Walk. This is a little podcast where we discuss the things we talk about when we take walks together. My name is Micah.
I'm Shireen.
Let's talk.
Okay, Merry
All
Christmas.
right. Yeah, Merry Christmas.
It's Christmas week.
It is. Yep.
What are you wearing?
Yes. So this.
There's a story.
Is, yep.
If you can't see what he's wearing, you might need to just check it out.
Check it out. Yep. So this is a version.
It's not the
Not
original.
the actual from several years back when we were invited, asked, told to host our staff Christmas party.
Yep.
And we were kind of last minute scrambling for
We wanted to feel
like
and look
festive
Christmassy.
stuff. And so I thought
We had no money.
no money.
So you went
So I thought, let's go. I'm going to go to Goodwill and get a Christmas sweater
for both of us.
for both of us. And so I ran to Goodwill. This was like the afternoon of the party, I remember.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm scrambling through the sweater section of Goodwill, and I found like this shawl type thing. And I thought, well, this is the closest thing I can find to a Christmas sweater. But
You did find a sweater for me,
I did, yep.
and then you came home.
Yeah, with this shawl.
And you handed me the sweater and you said, look at what I found. This is so awesome. It's a Christmas shawl.
Right, yeah.
And it looked like a sweater. It was knit like a
Knit,
sweater.
yes.
It had buttons down
It
it.
did have buttons.
And you put it around.
Yeah. It was a little tight around the neck.
Yeah. And I said, that is a tree skirt. And you said, no, it's not. I said, look at the neck around it. And you're like, yeah, I thought it was just a little tight. I said, because it goes around a tree. I don't think I've laughed that hard.
Yeah, that was good. I don't
That
think I
was
really
the
knew what a
funniest.
tree skirt was.
No,
So it didn't even come into my mind that it would be, I was hanging up in the sweater section.
they did, to your credit, they did have it hanging in
Yeah,
the sweater
they did.
section.
Yeah.
So someone else
Yeah.
must have thought it was also
Maybe so.
a Christmas
I never
shawl.
thought of that, yes.
But
There's
it
someone
did-
else in the world.
It was
Thinks like me.
a sweater like Christmas tree skirt
And we had it for a long time.
because it was the funniest thing.
Yeah, I
in
wore
all
it
the
that
land.
night.
You
it
did
wound
wear
up
it
being
that
a
night.
great icebreaker to
It
the
was
evening to
so
tell that story.
funny. And
Once
then I
got
think we
over feeling stupid.
made jokes about it for years around here. And so I couldn't find it. Apparently I got rid of it, which was a terrible
I think so,
idea.
yeah. I think last year you were just like, I think we needed
I was probably on one
to
of
get
my
rid of
cleaning
some things.
rampages.
Yeah. Because
But
I
then
feel like I remember you saying, yeah, let's just get rid of it. We probably won't use it for anything.
That was,
And
don't
so
listen to me when I'm on
You
those.
brought a replica today.
Well, yeah, we had this one. I think a kid wore it as a part of a costume of some sort.
Oh, yeah.
But it also, I mean, it actually looks like something like one of the wise men could have worn
It
or
does,
something.
It does, yep.
So you
They could have, yeah.
I mean,
Embroidered, yep.
but if anyone needs, if you can't find a Christmas sweater, let me just tell you that a tree skirt can really work as
You
a
can.
Christmas shawl.
2 for 1.
If you need something.
If you have the right
and
tree skirt.
If you're in a pinch for an ugly sweater contest, you will for sure win.
Yeah.
Just out of creativity.
Absolutely.
So
Yep.
there's that.
It's a way to go.
So Christmas shawl.
Yeah. It's
Merry
nice.
Christmas.
It's great. Great memory.
So it is Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's also like the end of the year. We start thinking about
Yeah.
the end of the year coming up.
Yep.
And like, I don't know about you, but it's always like as soon as Christmas is over, I start getting very reflective. I actually think a lot of people do.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're already kind of in your feels over Christmas anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get to the end of the year and New Year's is coming and we all start getting, and it's my birthday coming
It
up
is
too.
coming up.
I hope you are prepared for that.
Of course. I got all kinds of things
I'm
planned.
sure you
It's going
are.
to be amazing.
And I will not know anything because I don't go searching for
It's true.
presents
Yep.
like you do. But I do think most people get a little reflective at this time.
Yeah.
I do, and I think it's actually really important to do.
Yeah.
Right? To like look back at your year, not just how many songs you listen to on Spotify or
Right.
what music you listen to, but also maybe things that happen in your life.
Yeah.
Both of us are journalers, so I don't know that I always go back through my journal. I've tried to like get better about marking things
Yeah.
in my journal and being able to go back. But I know we try to mark certain like times of our life, and maybe we get more reflective. But I actually think that's like something God's put in us, right? Like
Yeah.
he talks a lot about remember. Like he uses that phrase a lot, remember whatever. And he told the Israelites anytime like he brought them out of something, create this, monument in a sense to remember what I did here for you.
Yeah.
And I think the end of the year, one of those times of kind of remembrance.
Yeah.
And I think we should spend time doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good time to do it. And even if it can't be the weeks leading up to Christmas that are a little bit crazy,
Right.
Being able to maybe find some time in
Like
January,
this week,
or even January.
Yeah, or the beginning
being
of January,
able to
yeah.
just as things kind of the Christmas season, the holiday rush is over, to find the first or second week of January, just to find a little time here and there to reflect.
I think
it's always
that's
a good thing.
important
I
to
have
do.
my journal that I used this year. Actually, this morning, started going back to the front of the journal just to look and see, like, because it's like a 1 year thing, and so I was just looking what was life like a year ago.
Okay, so what are, like, a good way to do this would be like highs and lows.
Yep.
Right? Like, so what were some of yours as you're reflecting back this year?
Highs. Well, some of the most obvious ones are the leadership transition here at Lifegate.
sure.
That just went really, really well.
It has.
A lot of thought and prayer went into that for a long time. Not only us, on the front end deciding, is this really God's will for our life, but even the last 3 years of preparing our people for it,
Yeah.
and just talking through it, planning for it, all of that. And it went as good as I think a
know.
transition can possibly go.
I think
It's
so.
been amazing. And so I think not just the transition, but it's been the 7 months or whatever afterwards to just see how much life there is in the church, to see the same faces. People aren't like
Nobody's leaving.
right? Like
That's a
it's
good sign.
Honestly, it's just like, wow, I think we did this well. I think God's hand was on this. I think people feel cared for, and it felt like a stable, unscary, very transparent thing. And
Yeah,
I
that's
think it's
definitely
really,
a high.
Yeah,
for
it's huge.
Both of us, I would say.
Yep. We got another driver in
That
our house.
is a
That can be like
big
highs
high.
and lows. But
Highs
it's
and
been
lows,
it's
that's
been
true.
great though. I mean, there hasn't been any lows really.
I think that's been a big high for me. Because I'm not going to lie, I was terrified.
Yeah.
I was not, I was excited for the relief,
Yeah.
but I was not sure how this was going to go.
I know. Yeah.
Because, yes, it is very scary to have a driver.
Yeah.
But it has been, she's a great driver.
She's great. It's kind of like, I wonder if it's like, you don't know what the married version of you is going to be until you're married. You
That's
don't
true.
know what the parent version of you is going to be until you're a
So
parent.
true.
I don't think you really know what like the driver version of somebody is going to be, because we just didn't know with her. It could have gone either way.
But even in practice, we were like, oh,
I know.
boy.
Yeah.
But
She's great.
It's like she turned a corner. As
Yeah.
soon as she got her license, she was like confident and like, yeah, I'm doing this. And she's great. The
Yeah.
kids
And she's
feel safe with her.
responsible,
We
and yeah.
feel good in the car with her.
Yeah. It's been awesome.
That has been a huge
Huge.
high this year.
Huge.
Very monumental moment for us as a
Yep.
family. Yep.
What for you?
I think that's one of them. I can't think of, I feel like we've had a lot of other little highs throughout the year. I think I really loved, it was at the very beginning of the year, my trip to New York with Laylee.
Yeah.
It was like kind of spontaneous, last minute with some friends. And it has started off the year, and she and I have had this little connection that we would always talk about. Remember this, remember this. And it became more so, I think, even over time, a sweet
Yeah.
high.
That was a great trip for y'all.
Yeah, for me and her to have that together, because she, that's her dream city.
Yeah.
Because she wants to be in theater and live that life. I think it was fun to experience that with her for the first time, and that became a very sweet high that
Yeah.
I didn't expect to be. So that was, and you know me, I love trips. So
Yeah.
any trip is usually a high for me.
Big time.
Yeah.
Which our other trip, I'm just
Oh,
remembering,
yeah.
we did Costa Rica.
We
this year.
did.
That was great.
That was
amazing.
how was How did we not remember that one? That was a high for us because we haven't done something
so long
like
ago,
that.
But that was incredible.
Forever.
Yeah, that was a great trip.
That was a great trip. To any chance you can get out of the cold and be warm is a high for me.
Totally. Yep.
So that was good. Yeah.
I think one that was high and low was the stroke.
Yeah.
I think it was like started really low. Obviously having a stroke is not fun. Coming right out of the stroke, right out of the gate, I was like so full of joy after that whole experience.
I don't think you shed a tear.
No, I think it was just this renewed, like, everything's okay.
Right.
We got
you were
through
so
this.
grateful.
So grateful for life. And it makes you just like value everything.
And maybe just in a little shock everything. Of what just happened.
Probably looking back now. But at the time, it just was this sense of kind of renewed, like, gratitude in my heart. It's been down the road where I think more the grief has come in.
That hits you later.
Wow, that just happened. And you now I'll carry that with me as a part of my story.
Right.
That can
and
be
all the medicine that you take now.
I'm not on too much anymore, but having gotten through the heart procedure and those kind of things, there's relief, but there's still some grief over like, wow, there's a sense of like limitation, mortality, that kind of stuff that comes with an experience like that you carry with you. And I think it can shift between gratitude and grief at different times.
I think so. I mean, I would say the same for me. I would probably put it more in the low category.
For sure.
We're still grateful. So I don't know if it hits a high, but it's definitely, I think the things that God did in us and the way we leaned on him through it and still from that, I would say are definitely like game changers in our lives. Like connections, the connection to Jesus on this side of it is, there's no other way.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing else. Suffering just connects you with Jesus in a different way.
Yeah. It does.
And I would say that was a unique situation that brought that. But I definitely think, I think there are still waves of grief for me too. Not necessarily grief, but like fear. For me, it's more now just kind of coming through the fear. So that was definitely that was the lowest low that I've experienced in a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the fear, just the whole experience.
Yeah.
So that is definitely
sticks with
the
you.
low of the year, I would say.
Sticks with you. But also like it's this, having lived through those things, you realize, I think we kind of often live our lives in a way to avoid any pain whatsoever, which is smart. Part of it is survival. Part of it's just wisdom. But when pain comes and it's given to God and he redeems it and uses it for good, it's not that you're necessarily grateful that it happened, but you're grateful for how God used it. And it makes you I think it makes you a little less fearful moving forward and a little less
that's true.
Feeling the need to be in control of everything because you've gone through some things and they've landed well. And
I think it's still important to mark the lows too,
it is.
Right? Because
Absolutely.
we've walked them with the Lord. It just made me even think, like, talking to what I said earlier about how God, like, right on the other side of, parting the sea, he tells them to get stones and make a remembrance or, remember what I did. But when you think about the whole situation, we think about just the miracle, but like they had to be terrified for their lives. They were about to get absolutely taken over.
Yeah.
And instead, God totally changed the situation. And so what was this fearful, scary, most horrific moment, God redeemed.
Yeah, he did.
But still said, I need you to mark this.
Yep.
Do not forget what I did for you here. And I think that's what both the highs and the lows are good. It's easier to go through the highs and say like, oh my gosh, that was so great. And I want to remember that forever. But the lows, I think, are also really important. Because that's when we do see God's redemption on the other side of it. That's where we need to mark those, because we forget, or we want to forget.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's where it's good to go back and remember all these things.
It is. And sometimes you can't have one without the other, meaning like the highs often, in many cases, when it comes to life in God are often preceded by a low of some
Absolutely.
sort. And that's like, I think it was Chris Beecham who said to us right after the stroke, every miracle is preceded by
Yes.
a tragedy or
Someone
a crisis.
else told me that. They're like,
Yeah.
you don't know what the person, we watch people's miracles, but you don't know what the person walked through
Yeah.
before the miracle, and their pain and their suffering and
Yep.
their hurt and their tears. And so those are the things, like that's actually, like the miracle moment is great, and we want to remember that. But I think even more so what God's trying to tell us is like, no, but you found me all along in it. Like
Yep.
I was with you in all these other parts of it. And don't forget that. Don't forget that I
Yeah.
brought you through that to this
Yep.
place.
That's really good.
And so I think that's why I like this time of year to like look back, and it's almost like like finding God throughout the year, that where I may have forgotten where he was.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really good. It's wise. So then the other side to that is looking forward into next year. Great time of year to do that.
Yep.
To think ahead. What are things that you're thinking about for next year when it comes to how you're going to do life?
Yeah. So you and I have gotten out of the habit of like, I don't even think I hear people talk about it anymore. Do people even do New Year's resolutions? That's not a thing anymore, I don't think.
I think people still do them.
You think so?
Yeah.
More like goals. People talk about goals.
Yeah, goals are a
lot,
big deal.
Which
Yeah.
we don't even fully do either. So we're more into like the idea of practices,
Yep.
or, having our life trellis or rule of life.
Yep.
And I think, well, first I should say before I think about next year, which I have started thinking about already, is this year was one of the first times in a long time that I've completed something I set out to do.
Oh, like anything you've ever set out to do?
No, not
Okay.
anything. But like, no. Okay, so I decided, so our friend Annie she started this new podcast at the beginning of the year of reading the Gospels, all 4 Gospels every single month for the whole year. And I remember when she told me she did this personally first, and then she was like, I'm going to do a podcast on this. And I thought about it, and I was like, I think I'm going to do that. And I usually will set out to read, like, I'm going to read the Bible in a year. I'm going to do this version, or I'm going to do we all kind of do those things. I stuck with the whole thing.
Yeah.
I think I wavered a little bit in the month of July during the stroke. Wasn't because I wasn't clinging to Jesus. I was still very much spending time with Jesus, just probably wasn't in the Word every single day. But I did it every single day for the most part.
Wow. Did you, if you missed a day, did you catch up, or did you just pick up?
Well, you know me. I'm going to go back and catch up.
Okay, okay,
I
gotcha.
did.
I just always see you with those little AirPods in.
Yep, every
your
day.
Bible.
And
Yep.
or I'll if I couldn't do it, like listen to it, I would read my own, and didn't always do it in the same version. Maybe she was reading it in. But then sometimes, like in the car ride to school, even with kids, like, okay, guys, I hadn't read my Bibles. Y'all are going to listen with me. And I spent every month this whole year with Jesus.
That's so great.
I did not realize what it would do. It was so transformative for me, I think. Like to the point where I'm like, I am going to miss being with Jesus every single day in that way.
You're still going to be with him.
I know.
But in the Gospels every day.
In the Gospels. Because
you can do it again.
I could. But I want to try something new.
Okay.
I want to like see if I can do another type of reading.
Yeah.
But there was something like comforting about that. I was just really, I was proud of myself. So that was something new for me. And now because of that, I'm looking forward to like, okay, what am I going to do that feels doable? That was the other thing. Like that one felt doable.
Yep.
That's why I said yes to that for this year.
Yeah.
Because I know myself enough to know I will try, and you know this about me, I will try to take on some things and then I won't continue on with them, or I'll overcommit to, I think I can do all these things.
Yeah.
And so I've learned that I need to just choose the things that fit.
Yeah.
That I think I could do.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. That's great. This year was not a year of crushing it for me when it came to the practices.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Not really. Like, I think I've settled into...
I feel like you're better at it than me.
Well, I've settled into kind of I almost never miss a day when it just comes to the basics of just spend time with Jesus in the morning,
right.
read a little bit, pray a little bit, journal a little bit. I did not journal much this fall at all.
Yeah, I tapered off with journaling.
Yeah. I found that there are seasons where I'm reading scripture more heavily, and it can feel like kind of the journaling and the prayer isn't quite as deep and rich. And there are times where I'm praying and journaling really well, and maybe I'm
kind
not,
of ebbs and flows.
Yeah, I'm not skating through scripture the same way or whatever. So I picked up a new reading plan like in August.
Oh, okay.
A Bible in a year reading plan, not the Bible in a year.
No.
It's a guy who's like really popular in like Presbyterian circles, like an old Scottish pastor from like the 1800s. It's called the M'Cheyne. It's like M''Cheyne reading plan. He developed this, 100-something years ago. And it's just 4 chapters a day, takes you through the Bible in a year, but it's a psalm. It's like an Old Testament passage, a psalm, a gospel, and an epistle.
Okay.
And some of those you'll read twice over the course of the year and others once. But that's been great.
There was a year where you had an intense Bible plan
some that I created for me.
So you
that
have
was 8
done
chapters
these
a
in
day,
different seasons.
but these. So I did okay reading this year, or at least But I didn't read a lot of books this year. That's probably one of my disciplines. I really want to read a lot. I did not do a lot of that this year. I would feel like there are other areas where I just kind of got sloppy when it came to some of the practices. I think some of it was just the fullness of life this year, the transition we went through, the kids, the season they're in and what that requires of us. And then I think too, I don't know that I had the same like emotional and mental energy after the stroke to give towards things that were really beyond just ministry and kids.
The daily things.
I don't think I had a lot for just structuring my internal world very well. And so I've had to just kind of have grace for that and know that like those are just a means to an end. They are not the end, which is intimacy with Jesus. You can still access that in other ways. So
yeah, that's good. I think for me too, I always try to start out the year with journaling too. And then like prayer circles, that is my new thing too.
Yes.
I love doing that.
I need to get back to that.
It is probably one of my favorite practices because I need a tangible, I see what I'm praying for. And I even now write little things. So I'll go back at the end of the year of my journal and I'll see everything. I'll write the little, God did this, God did this. And then I'll transfer them into a new journal for next year. And some of them may look different then.
Yeah.
And that's what's really fun is to see, that's actually tangible to see, wow, I prayed for this and God did this.
Yeah.
And now I get to mark, scratch that one, check. God did that. Or no, I'm still contending for this. And I think that's a good practice. I'll definitely bring that into the new year.
Yep.
Again.
That's a great thought.
And I think it's an easy one for, I think anybody can. Our kids we tried to do that with our kids at one point.
Yeah.
I don't know how much they stuck with it, but.
Yeah. And we have, with the rule of life, I try to create my pattern for disciplines or practices every year, the rule of life or the life trellis. And I was looking today and I try to write a new one every season because life changes and it's nice to adjust it. And I wrote one in winter of 23 and I had never changed it. Oh. So that just kind of shows you I wasn't quite as tuned in there this year as I want to be. So next year I'll start fresh with I'll kind of look at my life trellis and decide what practices are going to look like, how I'm going to do them, anything I want to add, anything I'm going to take away.
I need to get better about that too. I don't structure mine the same way. You're a lot more structured.
I type it out and I cut it to the size of my journal and
that's good. Maybe I'll do that.
Tape it onto the inside of my journal. And that way I can always go back to it. And then if I ever do a new one, I'll tape it into that section of the journal or whatever.
That's a good idea.
And I'll flip back there.
Then it's
kind of the same thing as your prayer circles. It's just an exercise that keeps you intentional and kind of reminds you of what you want on the forefront of your mind.
And I think that's what is better about the way we want to do things instead of setting these goals that you feel like you may fail at or whatever. Yeah. That's why we love practices because that's what it is. Okay, I might not be good at it right now. I'm developing this in my life. I'm cultivating this in my life and it's growing something in me that, is beyond just like hitting a goal. It is cultivating fruit of the Spirit. It's cultivating an intimacy with Jesus. It's, growing prayer muscles or, faith muscles or whatnot. And so I think that's why I like that idea better. I think it's always good too at this point. We've talked about this before of like revisiting, okay, what does Sabbath look like for us again?
Yep.
We've
different seasons of life.
Kind of slacking in our Sabbath practice and like
and
being
super intentional within the Sabbath. Being intentional within the Sabbath.
Like the start of it, talking about it with our kids in this phase because they have different lives and choices they're making of how to live life that day. And so maybe going back to some of that would be a good thing for us to do. So I think there's a couple things we can look.
Yeah. I also think it's a great time of year to think about just like, what do I want to see God do in our life? Or what do I want to go after? Like kind of like reaccessing some dreams. I think a lot of times at the end of a year, we can sometimes, depending on how you're wired, focus a little bit more on like what didn't quite go the way we wanted it to go.
Yeah.
And that can then lead us into the next year with like, well, why even try? Because last year it didn't work out. So, but I think it's a great time to dream. I think
you're right.
Coming right out of Christmas into the new year, it's a great time to just, and dreaming in God. Mark Batterson has such great insight on this. He talks about how our brains are actually designed as goal-oriented organisms.
I could see that.
And so like if you think about like if you're wrestling through a problem, your brain is constantly working on that problem until it gets solved or resolved. It's like the way God made us. It's kind of cool. So when you take your design and you align that with faith in God and say, okay, what are the things that I want to see God do this year? What are the things I want to go after? What are the dreams in my heart that I want to see? And not being afraid to write that stuff down. Put it out there.
Like dream
make
boards
a plan
that people make or things, or write them in your journal.
It's a great time of year to do that. Great time of year. And so I think that's something I know I want to try and do. I think we talked about this last year, that somewhere along the way, maybe in my 30s, my dreamer got broken.
Yeah,
I was like such a dreamer all my life. And somewhere along the way, my dreamer got broken, and you've encouraged me to reaccess that. And so this is a time of year that I think I will.
Yeah, we even had a conversation this year about it.
This summer on our porch. I remember.
You asked me, and I had like already a long list of things.
You did.
It's easy for me. And then I asked you, and you're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And you like.
I literally couldn't think of anything.
I think we finally got to one thing.
We did.
It's just.
And that one thing came about.
God has provided.
Last week.
I know.
So, yeah. Kind of neat how that
works.
works.
Is fun to enter into those with the Lord. Mm-hmm. And even ask him for dreams, maybe if you're not maybe a dreamer naturally, or the dreamer side of you has been crushed by someone or something or just circumstances in life, and maybe like reactivate that.
I mean, think about Jesus talking about childlike faith. Like
that's what kids do.
Kids dream, kids have imagination, kids have hopes. Like they are going to keep
asking for the things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a great time of year to get back to like childlike faith. Like, Lord, would you do this in my life this year? Would you, and going back to what you said, the prayer circle thing. Yeah, write those things down. Remember, we've talked about write it in the back of your journal if you have a journal, and that way it's there with you until you're done with that journal. And just go back to it on a regular basis and circle it and ask God and see how it grows and develops.
And then watch what God does through the year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then what's neat is because now it becomes this habitual thing of every year. Then I look back and I look at my circles and go, wow, God, look at what you did. Mm-hmm. I actually had the thought too of like doing this with our kids kind of before New Year's celebration or something. And, New Year's Eve, like writing all the things, like letting the kids get involved and say, what did you see God do this year? What did he do for you? What prayer did he answer? Yep. How did he come through for us? What cool thing did we watch him do? Mm-hmm. And it stirs our faith as a community. Yeah. So doing this by yourself is good, but I think doing it with, whether it's a life group or a friend group or family, whoever, like it stirs faith to hear other people's, that's why testimony matters. Mm-hmm. It stirs our faith when we do these kind of things together. And
it does.
Like, and gets us excited to be able to ask and dream again and say,
Yeah.
okay, here are the things now we want to see what God's going to do this year. And we're going to ask for that.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
I love that. So, one last highlight of this year, and maybe we can kind of close with this, has been this podcast.
I know.
This has been so much fun.
It's been so
And
fun.
in many ways, has been inspired by you. You had this idea as well as all the people behind these that no one will ever see, these cameras. Maybe we should interview them at one point.
We should one day.
But Addie and Blake and Naomi and Caleb worked so hard to make this a reality. And this has been, honestly, the last 6 months of doing this, a ton of fun.
It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. So
you and I have conversations like this at home. They're probably a little bit more colorful because we're not as filtered as we would be, but maybe we'll get there. But to be able to bring it if it's helpful for other people, I think I've
enjoyed it.
I think it's fun.
Hopefully people listening have as well.
Yeah.
So what a good year it's been, 2023. You've been great. And hopefully this has been a fun start to the podcast for everybody who's been listening. And I just hope and pray everyone listening is having a great end to their year, and that God's blessings go before you into next year.
Yep. Merry Christmas.
All right. Merry Christmas.